It is time for head coach interviews for the 2020 Big Sky Football virtual kickoff. I'm joined by Idaho State head coach Rob Fennessy, Montana State head coach Jeff Choate, and Portland State head coach Bruce Barnum. Welcome, gentlemen. So we're going to just jump right in with our first set of questions. This one's for all of you. Coach Choate, we'll start with you. What is the biggest game on your schedule?
They're all big, but I think there's one the third week in November that's pretty big in the state of Montana. It's kind of hard to ignore that one. Obviously, I think we've got a really tough schedule this year. Go on the road to Portland State, play Rob's team. We've got an opportunity to play, I think, at all three, Weber State, at Eastern Washington, and at Montana. So the road stretch is going to be what's most challenging for us.
Absolutely. Now, Coach Choate, what was your priority in bringing in NC State transfer Matt McKay to compete at quarterback with returning starter Tucker Robig?
To get better, I think that was it. Create competition. That's a really important position. We've had a really interesting kind of go of things here. But the other thing I'll tell you is, I'm not afraid to play multiple quarterbacks either. And so if we can get a number of talented individuals in there, we'll find a way. That's been one of the things I think we've done a really good job of as staff, is finding a way to get our playmakers their touches. And if we can do that through the air, great. But generally for us, it's been getting creative in the run game. And so having guys like Tucker and Casey Bauman's a guy who's a really talented athlete who a lot of guys I think in this league would be excited to have. I think we have three quarterbacks that have won Division I games on our roster right now. And so I think that continuing to prioritize that position and pushing us forward, I think that's kind of been the missing link for us in terms of maybe breaking through and winning a conference title. I know firsthand, having gone to Fargo the last 2 years and played against exceptional quarterbacks, that if we want to take that next step and get another one of those things behind me, we're going to have better quarterback play. And I think Tucker did an awesome job getting us to the national semifinals last year. But for us to be able to bring in a guy with a lot of experience at the 1A level that can push him, the winner of that competition is going to help us be better as a team.
Coach Choate, in each of your first 4 seasons, your teams have improved. How does Montana State take the proverbial next step this next season?
I think it's going to be a real challenge. We talked about the difficulty of our schedule, and that's one of the pieces. I think oftentimes in this conference, and I think Bruce and Rob would both agree, who you play, when you play them, and where you play them has a lot of determining factors in terms of how successful your season's going to be. And I think our league more than most is like that. When I was in the SEC, I really felt like it was like that too. Playing Tennessee and Gainesville was a big advantage for us over having to go to Knoxville. And I think it's the same way. Playing Portland State and Bozeman is a huge advantage versus going to Portland. And so I think those things play out, and it speaks to the strength of our league. But we've got to stay the course. One of the things that concerns me the most right now, I don't really think that we were the most physically gifted team over the last couple of years, but I do think that we had really good chemistry and we had a toughness about us that allowed us to play a lot of tight games and win a lot of tight games. And my concern more than anything isn't the fact that we're not training as consistently as we have or practicing as consistently as we have. We're just not around our guys. And I think that's kind of the secret ingredient in any great organization is the people. And so that's probably my biggest concern for us taking that next step is how quickly are we going to be able to reestablish our standards and our culture.
Coach Choate, your team's biggest strength this season?
Well, I hope it's that unity that we talked about a moment ago. I think that's, again, the secret ingredient in this thing. But if you just look strictly at kind of what we have, we returned 4 of our 5 starters on the offensive line, 3 of which I think are legitimate honors candidates. So I think that's definitely our strength. I think we've got an excellent offensive line group returning with a ton of experience. And then on the defensive line, we lost 3 really good players. 2 all-conference players and another young man that was a major contributor for us. But I think that will continue to be a strength for us. And we've got Amandre Williams coming off the edge who really started to blossom at the end of last year when UW bounced down. We got an interior guy named John Clark that started multiple games at the University of Washington. He's a graduate transfer. Chase Benson, who I think is over last season was, I think, the best interior defensive lineman in our league and consistently performed at a high level. And then on the other edge, you say, hey, how are you going to replace Troy Anderson? Well, we're not, but we've got a lot of depth at the edge positions, kind of like Daniel Hardy, who came in and had a really good tail ended last year, a junior college transfer that we had the luxury of redshirting last year, Tyson Regenball, and then a fifth-year senior in Kyle Finch. So I like our depth. Maybe we don't return as much productivity on the D-line as you might think, but I think we're going to be pretty salty. And then on the O-line, I think we've got the combination of depth and experience that you want to have there. So we'll probably be able to run the ball. Well, we will, because we won't try to do anything else. But the good news is I think that's going to help us if we get a slow start to the season, because we don't have to worry about as much about timing in the passing game and things of that nature.
Now, Coach Choate, having won the last 4 rivalry games against Montana, what do you think it will take for you to beat the Grizzlies again this upcoming season?
Wait, can I record this one, Mary Lou?
I got it recorded. Don't you worry, Coach Barnum.
I think it's a pretty simple recipe for our success in those games. And if you look at it, I think we've come close to 400 yards rushing in each one of those. And so I think just consistently doing what we do, regardless of the scoreboard. We were down 22 in Missoula 2 years ago, and we didn't change what we did a whole lot. We were able to complete a couple passes down the sideline. But, I mean, every team's different. Every situation's different. I'm sure they're hungry to get back on the good side of the column up there in Missoula. And for us, we're right now, quite honestly, that seems like 1,000 miles away. I'm hoping we can get back to working out on Monday. That's what I'm hoping. And so, I mean, I know this is going to be the theme that we're moving forward with, but quite honestly, we'll worry about them when we get to them. I hope we get to them. That's what I hope. And if we do, we got a pretty good blueprint for how to take care of it.
So now, looking at how this time has been, this is a question for all of you. What creative ways have you used during the offseason to keep your team connected in these unconventional times? Coach Choate, we can start with you.
It's kind of been, I imagine all of us are pretty similar. We've relied on technology like we're using right now. But then there's been some things. I think our assistant coaches have been amazing. I know my son plays linebacker for us, and his position coach, Bobby Daly, they had a film critique of the Tiger King that kind of kept the guys engaged a little bit. I know one of our other assistant coaches did a scavenger hunt. And so they've kind of, tried to just do some fun things like that to, a contest of sending pictures within their group chat of what their workout is for that day, and just some things to try to connect these guys and motivate them. I think this has been the hardest job I've ever had, to be honest with you. People are like, well, are they going to pay you guys if they don't play? And I'm like, they ought to pay us more. I mean, this is dang hard. It's way easier to connect with human beings when you're in front of them, and to get a pulse on what's going on with your team when you're around them on a consistent basis. And I don't want to speak for the other guys, but I think this has been a huge challenge just in terms of keeping a kind of that grasp of what your guys need at that moment when you're not around them. And our primary job is to make sure that we meet the basic needs of our student athletes: food, shelter, and safety. And we want to do that. And it's way easier to do when we're around them and can connect with them. So I think we've all gotten creative, but I think that's probably been the most challenging part of this time.
Now, Coach Choate, I'm going to come back to you. Montana State is known for having a balanced attack on offense. Talk about how an offensive lineman like Lewis Kidd helps pave the way for the plays to happen.
He's a kid that came here actually as a defensive lineman. And one of the things, it was funny, when I worked for Muschamp at Florida, all of our D-line, all of our redshirt freshman O-line did all their individual with the D-line. And I asked him, I'm like, what's the deal here? And he says, well, they learn to strike. I mean, you teach offensive linemen, a lot of times they're going backwards, they're retreating, and I want these guys to learn to bite as young kids. And I thought it was an interesting approach, and we've kind of taken some of that here. And Lewis is one of several offensive linemen that started out their career on the defensive side of the ball for us and then transition, and I think it helps their aggressive. Lewis is a great big kid who's got a ton of physical tools. I mean, he's got all the measurables, very bright, was elected as a team captain. And I think he's stepped really seamlessly in a different way into the role that Lewis that Mitch Broad had for us a year ago in terms of the kind of the alpha in the room. And he's got some good lieutenants, guys like Connor Wood and Zach Red and Taylor Tuiasosopo and Jake Sessions. There's guys around him that I think prop him up. And I think that's been one of the reasons why he's stepped into such a positive role. One thing I wanted to add here, because I know we're getting short on time, and I just wanted to throw this out here because I think this is important to talk about. We've talked a lot about the COVID thing and all that. 35% of my roster are African-American young men too. And I think that it's important for us to not forget that as challenging as things are right now, there's another layer for a certain portion of our rosters that are really important to discuss. And I hope that doesn't get lost in the discussion. I know that's something that I'm sure Rob and Bruce spend a lot of time counseling those young men, making sure that they're doing good, because it's a really confusing and difficult time for them. And I think the more that we can do to support them, that's important. I know the Big Sky's had some initiatives along those lines, but I just wanted to make sure I talked about that for a moment. And I think that's actually added to the difficulty of our job during this time. Is not just the COVID thing, but this social injustice piece that we're dealing with right now too. And I know I'm not going to take any more time, but I want to tell you, these two guys right here, they're really good football coaches, and they have two of the toughest jobs. I'm not sure there's a tougher job in Division I football than what Bruce Barnum has. And you never hear that guy complain. He's always positive. And I know the situation that they're dealing with at Idaho State with some of the state restrictions and finances. And so those guys are big time ball coaches, and I'm proud to, call them teammates in the Big Sky, so to speak.
Is there anything that you want to add to what you said previously?
No, I just think it's a time for us to really listen to our student athletes of color and make sure they understand that we're here for them. And it's because this doesn't just affect African-American young men. I mean, we have Polynesian student athletes in Montana. We have Native Americans. And so it's a bigger issue than just one socioeconomic group. And we need to recognize that and do a good job of listening to people and providing opportunities, like Bruce said, for them to express what they're going through and how they're feeling about it, and try to hopefully that creates more dialogue. I do think that this is, I was great to hear him say, hey, we've got a great opportunity here too. I thought that, because I need to hear that, I mean, this ain't easy, and sometimes we feel like we're in this by ourselves. And I wish we could spend 2 hours probably talking as head coaches about some of the challenges we're facing right now. And so it's good to know that there's somebody out there that's experiencing the same difficulties, but also has this, hey, glass is half full type mentality that, there's an opportunity for us to lead and to create change. And I do really believe that we'll have some positive things come out of this kind of cloudy time that we're in right now.
Absolutely. That you all are taking advantage of this opportunity, as Coach Barnum said, to speak on those issues. So now it's time for some questions from Big Sky football fans. These questions come from Twitter. Coach Choate, I have the first one for you from Ty Vincent 47. He asked, have you seen a major difference in the level of mental and athletic preparedness because of the players having extra time at home?
Well, it's really hard to say because, we haven't been around our guys. We were able to bring them back voluntarily on the first, and then we've had, some pullback here and pullback there. And I think that our guys were awesome for about 2.5 months. That's what I think. I think they were unbelievable. Did well in the classroom, stay engaged. We kind of built a schedule for them to follow. And I think this roller coaster that they're on right now has been really difficult for them. And so I think that's one thing that I hope administrators understand in terms of making decisions is we need these kids. I mean, we just got to quit zigzagging. Whatever it is, stick to it. Get on the railroad track and go. Quite honestly, nobody, not Dr. Fauci, not, our health experts in Gallatin County, nobody has the right answers. And I don't think anybody's going to blame anybody for that. But we need to stick to a plan. And I think that's been the most difficult thing for our guys in terms of staying mentally engaged, because it's very discouraging when, hey, we amp up and we're excited, let's get back to work. And then the next day, well, hey, we got to back off over the weekend or whatever, So I think we all know that this is a real virus. It's an airborne deal. It's not going to be contained. People are going to get sick. We've got to do what we can to mitigate it. We got to make a decision whether we're going to do this or not. And if we do, then we got to go. Unfortunately, because of the lack of leadership at higher levels, none of us have any guidelines. We're all Bruce is operating under a different system than Rob's operating. I'm operating under a different system because in Montana it's county by county than Bobby is. So it's the craziest thing ever.
Right. Now, Coach Choate, back to you. This question's from Dan_my_man. He said, you've had your fair share of coaching roles, but what was it like to get the call for your first head coaching job? And have you tried to emulate any particular coach you've worked with, or do you enjoy your own style?
Yeah, well, I think I was excited. I never thought that I would, quite honestly, get the job. I thought there was a lot of really good quality candidates for this position, and I was on the road recruiting for the University of Washington, and I didn't lose a whole lot of sleep about whether I was going to get this job or not. So I was a little bit surprised. I'd interviewed for a couple other head coaching jobs, and one of the things these guys can tell you, these jobs are really hard to get. And then when you get them, you wonder why they're so dadgum hard to get, because who would want this job? But and to kind of piggyback on what Rob said, like the difference between being an assistant coach and being a head coach, Mars and Earth. I mean, they're so far apart. The job is just so different. The only thing that's similar is there's a coach title somewhere in there. And so I think that was the thing for me. I was very excited, obviously, to get my opportunity. I don't know that I emulate anybody. I mean, obviously, I worked for Chris Peterson for 8 years. That's probably a guy that worked for at 2 different locations, one where we were kind of inheriting a pretty awesome culture and one where we were trying to build a good culture. And so I probably use a lot of Chris Peterson stuff. But I've actually been described as the redneck Chris Peterson. And so maybe that would be how I would leave it.
Okay, good answer. We're ready for the 2020 Big Sky Football Virtual Kickoff Student Athlete Interviews. I'm joined by Montana State offensive lineman Lewis Kidd, Northern Arizona wide receiver Stacy Chukwumeze, and Southern Utah wide receiver Landon Meesum. Welcome and thanks for joining me today to talk Big Sky football. We'll get started with our first set of questions. This question is for all of you. What makes the Big Sky Conference such a competitive league? And Lewis, we can start with you on that question.
All right. So what makes the Big Sky such a competitive league? I'd for sure have to say that it's just kind of every year it kind of resets. Not one team just dominates the league every year. I think of Sac State, for example, like a couple years ago, they were kind of middle of the pack. And then last year they were like a completely different team. And I think that's what makes it fun and competitive is just that you never know what you're going to get from a team a specific year. And anybody can beat anybody pretty much any given day. So.
Absolutely. Now, Lewis, what did playing in the playoffs last season mean to you and your teammates?
Oh, I mean, it was awesome. It was everything to us. Obviously ended a little bit earlier than what we would have hoped for. But that's kind of how it goes for anyone that doesn't win it all. But I mean, it was a lot of fun, great experience, great to be able to go against different people and different conferences and stuff and kind of around the nation. And it was great to be able to spend those few extra weeks with your teammates, with your brothers, and sending out those seniors the right way.
Now, another question for all of you. What creative ways have you come up with to stay in shape the past few months? Lewis, we'll start with you on that.
I mean, everyone's been affected by this virus and stuff, and everyone's had all these different rules and stuff. At the beginning, my house, I have a few football players I live with. We kind of accumulated some things, barbells, dumbbells, a bunch of different stuff, and we were able to actually set up a almost legit weight room for a while there. Then we kind of returned everything, and now it's kind of just very bare minimum stuff. But I mean, we were able to kind of keep up and kind of be able to keep building strength. And then luckily we've got a very nice, like big turf field pretty close to our house. So just kind of jog down there and get whatever conditioning or running speed drills, whatever it is. And, just basically getting anything you can, push-ups, sit-ups, throwing heavy stuff around, moving, trying to push cars around, like whatever it is, just trying to find creative ways and also making it fun because it's like that's pretty much all you can do.
That's great. Lewis, how have you stayed in touch with your team these past few months?
Yeah, I'd say very similar to these guys. Everything's pretty much virtual. Zoom meetings, FaceTime, whatever it is, Snapchat, texting, calling. We play video games, so talking through that and just kind of still being able to compete against each other and stuff has been fun. And, I'd say that's the extent of how we've been able to communicate and whatnot.
All right, so Lewis, what is missing from your college resume that you hope to achieve this year?
I would say just, I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of things that, you kind of hope for and want for, but I'd say as an overall, I think a championship would be something that would really just kind of put the cherry on top for me, as best as I can say it.
Now, Lewis, you mentioned incoming freshmen. What advice do you have for those younger guys who are coming on to the team?
My biggest thing is just kind of put your head down and work, especially as a freshman. You come from being the guy, being the number one at your school as a senior. You're the person, I'm going D1, all this stuff. And, a lot of guys come in, not a lot of guys, but some guys have a tendency to come in and they get humbled pretty quick because, like, now you're back as a freshman, you're kind of lower on the totem pole. And what we see is if you come as a freshman and you just put your head down and work, keep to yourself, stay out of trouble, and just do what you're supposed to be doing, you're going to earn the respect of all the older guys. And that's probably going to be the quickest way to earn your time playing. So that's probably the biggest thing.
Lewis, head coach Jeff Choate and his staff have built your team around the offensive line. How much pride does that give you?
Yeah, I mean, we take a lot of pride in that. Everyone knows we like to run the ball. And that's just, as an offensive lineman, that's just an awesome thing to do. It's a lot of fun when you get your run game going. It just kind of opens up the rest of your offense. And I think it's been a vital role in our success. And, we attribute to coaches, great backs, our quarterbacks, receivers doing their jobs. And then luckily we've had, for the past years that I've been here, a very solid defensive line every year to kind of help sharpen us and keep us on our toes for sure. Because, when you go in to practices and you have to battle every day against the opposing team, against the defense, whatever it is, and being able to go against a strong, solid D line every week, it really helps you and really helps build you up for games. So.
Yeah, for sure. Lewis, what about for you?
Yeah, for sure. I'd say just being away from, your teammates, being away from your friends, you really kind of realize it's like how much time you actually spend. It's different, you can't go lift and go to the locker room and just hang out and like talk. Oh, you want to go play some basketball, whatever it is. It's just like you can't do those things. And it's kind of, makes you feel like you're missing out a little bit on the experience of it. Cause that's, besides football, that's the biggest thing is just building those relationships. And I think that's been the biggest thing missing for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, Lewis, how would you describe the Brawl of the Wild and what does it mean to you to play in it?
It's the best game of the year every year, you get the whole state behind you. And it's crazy how the split is. It's like you're either a diehard Montana fan or you're a diehard MSU fan. And it's been awesome to be on the winning side of that streak here since I've been here, because I know in the past it's been kind of tough for MSU, but it's so much fun and the energy, and you get the most competitive side out of everyone from both sides, and the fans are great, and there's just a lot of history behind it. Coming in as a freshman, I really had absolutely no idea what it was all about, and then after that first year, it's like, yeah, that's what you're itching for all year. Like that's what you're looking forward to. So, yeah, for sure.
Lewis, what about for you? Best piece of advice you've received?
Yeah, I'd say the best piece of advice for me was just, you hear the seniors say it all the time, is just take it in, enjoy every bit of it because it goes fast. And it's like, I'm sitting here and it's like, I remember hearing that like it was yesterday, and it's like, now I'm a senior, now I'm preparing for my last season. It's just like, where did the time go? So I think, you have a tendency sometimes obviously to take that time for granted. It's like, oh yeah, I'm in football. Oh, fall camp sucks, whatever it is. Just like being able to find that stuff and enjoy it, and being able to take those little things and those little battles and just being able to, grind through them with your friends and stuff is just, something that you got to always cherish.
Now, you're talking about those little things, those little moments. What would you say is something that you took for granted and maybe you realized in these last few months that we've been in that you were taking for granted?
For sure, spring ball. I was never a fan of spring ball. As you get older, it's kind of like it's a lot of young guy stuff. They're trying to get a lot of the young guys, acclimated and get them a lot of reps. But especially here, it's super cold. We're up early. It's just kind of like, it sucks sometimes. I'm not going to lie. And I think everyone's gone through that a little bit. But when we missed out on it, at first I was like, okay, like that's not too bad. Like we'll be able to get back to it, whatever, we'll make up for it. And now I'm sitting here, it's like, dang, I really wish I could have, I wish I could go out there when it was -2 and be out there with my friends and stuff messing around. It's just like, you kind of take little stuff like that for granted. So I'd say that's one of the things for sure.
Which team are you always fired up to play? Lewis, you can go first on that one.
I mean, I think like we talked about earlier, how it's so much fun to play every team because every game's so competitive. But I mean, obviously for me, the Cat Grizz game is one of the best ones for sure. One of the most you look forward to.
Lewis, what makes you most proud of being a Bobcat?
I would say just the fan support and the fan love and just the community that you kind of are able to build here at Bozeman. You've got the whole town cheering for you. You got little kids coming up to you after the games, asking for gloves, asking for autographs, whatever it is. And I just think it's awesome to be able to play in front of those people and being able to give back to the community like that and, be there for them. So I'd say that's the biggest reason for sure.
Up first, who has the best uniforms in the Big Sky? Lewis, who do you have?
That's a good one. Can we say ourselves? No, I'm just kidding. I'm just playing.
You can if you can back it up.
I mean, I really like our Gold Rush jerseys for sure. Like, those are sweet. But, I got to give – I think everyone's got good whiteout jerseys for sure. I think those are – pretty much anytime you do white on white with anyone, I think it looks pretty clean. So, but, yeah. I also like NAU's blue and gold. And then I like the helmets that Southern Utah uses for sure. The kind of white with like the red pinstripe logo, stuff like that. I think that's really, really clean. So,
in the Big Sky has the coolest mascot, Lewis?
I think the Thunderbirds are kind of sweet, honestly. It's a unique one too, for sure. I think that might be one of my top ones.
Lewis?
I would say, as a group, I'd say Sac State's D-line last year. They were on, and they had a hell of a season. So I think for sure that group was one of the most dynamic for sure.
Lewis?
Got to stick with Missoula on this one.
All righty. Well, thank you, Lewis, Stacy, and Landon, for joining me on the Big Sky Football Virtual Kickoff. It is always a pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you.